Welcome back. Tonight we are going to talk about two different ways of writing equations. One is slope-intercept form and the second is point-slope form. Slope-intercept form is also called y-intercept form, depending on what book you read. So y equals mx plus b. You should be pretty familiar with this. M is your slope, which is your common difference. But you have to make sure that x is going up, hopefully by 1 or by the same amount at least. And then b is your beginning, also known as the y-intercept. Alright, so all of these equations are in y-intercept form or slope-intercept form. You have a slope of 4 and a y-intercept of 2. Whoops. What this means is if you were to graph this, it would start at 2. And a slope of 4 is the same thing as 4 over 1. And remember, this is rise over run. So you would go up 4 over 1. Put a dot. Up 4 over 1. That's your slope of 4 that starts at 2. This one is a negative slope. The slope is negative 1. That's the same thing as negative 1 over 1. And your y-intercept is negative 2.3. You may want to slash and dash if you're not seeing that negative. So this would start at negative 2.3. And then it would go down 1 over 1. Because again, that's rise over run. So down 1 over 1. And then you could just keep doing that. So this one's going like this, which makes sense. That's a negative slope. Y equals 4. I like to always think about the table, what that would look like. If y is always equaling 4, it doesn't matter what I plug into x, I will get 4 for y. So if you were to think about a graph of that, you would go over 0, up 4, over 1, up 4, over 2, up 4, over 3, up 4. That's that horizontal line at 4. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0. And then this is your b. This could also be written as 0x plus 4. That's totally different than x equals. If you have an x equals 2, that's your vertical line at 2. And that is undefined slope. And the last one we're looking at, our slope is 6. Same as 6 over 1 for your rise over run. And we could put a plus 0 here if that helps, so your b is 0. So 0, 0 is where we start, and then up 6 over 1. And it's even steeper than that first one because it's a slope of 6, and this first one was a slope of 4. Bigger the slope, the steeper it is. So we're going to graph this one now, 2/3 x plus 4. So we're going to start at 4. And then we're going to go up 2 over 3. And you could do that again. Up 2 over 3. And you could do that again if you wanted. Up 2 over 3. Now, when we have linear equations, we only need 2 dots. But if you started with like this last point, up 2 over 3 is the same exact thing as back to down 3, because a negative over a negative is a positive. So you could also go back to down 3, and you could continue that pattern so that you connect your dots for your line. You could also make a table. 2/3 is kind of a pain in the butt to make a table with. And that's why we started at 0 and then 1 and 2 are not even, they're crazy decimals, so 3 would be a good number to plug in, getting 6, because every time you go up by 3 in the x, you go up by 2 in the y. So 6 gave us 8, and 9 gave us 10. Like we could even put 9, 10, 9, 10. So these points correlate with the main points that we plotted. The decimals are not plotted, and that's how you graph y equals mx plus b. So if you're given the data, you just write the equation. So if your slope is 0.4, you write 0.4x plus 6. Why don't you pause it really quickly and see if you can write these 3. Your slope is negative 12, and your y-intercept is 0.5 or 1/2. Your slope is 1, and your y-intercept is 0. You could just write that as y equals 1x. You could just write that as y equals x. All of those are the same. That's probably the easiest way to write it. Your slope is 0. Your y-intercept is negative 5. Probably easier to just write that as y equals negative 5. And the last one, we are given a point. So there's 2 ways to think about this. If you have a slope of 4, we have to find our b. And our b is the y value when x is 0. And if we know 2 gives 5, and if our slope is 4, that means 3 would give 4 more, which is 9. So if we go backwards, 1 would give us 4 less, which is 1. And 0 would give us 4 less, which is negative 3. So we can use this information and write out 4x minus 3, same thing as 4x plus negative 3. If you want to use y equals mx plus b, this is our unknown. We have an m, we have an x, and we have a y. We can use those 3 points to solve for b. I would put 5 in for y, 4 in for my m, 2 in for my x, and this is my unknown. So 5 equals 8 plus b, and then to solve for b, you would subtract 8. So now that we have our b and our m, we can write the exact same equation. Whichever way works for you is good. You're going to probably have to use this at some point, especially if you're working with some intense decimals. So the second form of an equation is standard form. There's 3 forms. We're going to get to point slope in just a minute. So we just conquered slope-intercept form, also known as y-intercept form. Standard form, the x and the y are on the same side of the equation. The coefficient of x and y, the number in front of x and y, that's your a and your b. A is positive. A and b are not fractions. And that's the proper way to write standard form. So you're looking at letter A as in standard form. And we're going to rewrite that into y-intercept form, or slope-intercept form, whichever you want to call it. Now, standard form is best if you have your x and y intercepts. It's the easiest to work with. Slope-intercept form is easiest to work with if you need to graph it. So slope-intercept form means you're going to solve for y. So we're going to subtract 5x. So 3y equals negative 5x plus 8. And then we're going to isolate the y completely by dividing by 3. So y equals negative 5/3 x plus 8/3. If you look at letter B, this is in slope-intercept form. And we're going to convert it to standard form. which means the x and y are on the same side of the equation, and the coefficient of x is positive, and the coefficient of x and y are not a fraction. So we're going to do that by subtracting 2x. So we have negative 2x plus y equals negative 7. And we don't want that negative in front of the x, so we're going to multiply the whole thing by a negative. So our proper standard form is 2x minus y equals 7. So this equation is the same exact thing as this equation, which is the same exact thing as this equation. All of these lines would lie directly on top of each other. Same table, same graph, same everything. So if we're going to just solve with letters for y, we would subtract ax. So we're going to put this into slope-intercept form. This is standard form. So by equals negative ax plus c. And then we still need to get y isolated, so we would divide everything by b. So y equals negative a over b x plus c over b. So it's kind of like the formula. It's easier just to understand it and do it. I don't have that memorized or anything. And the last form is point-slope form. Point-slope form is right here. That's not point-slope form either. Okay, point-slope form is listed on the next slide. Where did I put it? I'll just write it right here. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Now, this y is always going to be there. This x is always going to be there. And then basically you're going to fill in that one, and that one. And you can leave it in point-slope form. Point-slope form can convert to standard form, convert to slope-intercept form. All of them can convert to each other. So the first thing says you have a slope of 5, and the point is 4, 6. So this is putting 5 in for the m, 6 in for y1, and 4 in for y2 from the slope formula. And so this is actually kind of written backwards through cross multiplication, which is how it was derived. If you go back up to the formula I wrote up here, if you can remember it, this is your y, this is your x, this is your m. So you would just write y minus 6 equals 5 times x minus 4. So that in red is the same as this down here. See how it's the same thing? Let's do another. All the middle work is showing kind of how it was derived. Okay, so again, we have a point and a slope. So point-slope form is easiest to use when you have a point and a slope. So this is your x, this is your y, and this is your m. So y minus the y value equals m times x minus the x value. And minus the negative is plus a positive. And I could put that little 1 there, that x sub 1, y sub 1. That just means that those 2 points go together. That's what this is. All that links to is which point you're using. All right, the second one, you have a slope of negative 1/3. This is your x, it's your y, that's your m. We can make that our x1, y1. So y minus the y value, so I'm going to make that plus a positive, equals the slope times x minus, I wrote 2, the x value. And we're done. And the last one is x, y, m. y minus the y value, so we could just make this y equals m times x minus the x value. So this one would be really easy to convert to y-intercept form. This is point slope. To convert to y-intercept or slope-intercept, you just solve for y. So in this one we would distribute the 3. And since there's no number to add over, we're done. So this is our slope-intercept form. That's the same exact thing as this. And then if we want to convert to standard form, we can just put the x and y on the same side and make sure x is positive and no fractions in the coefficients of the letters. So negative 3x plus y is negative 12. So 3x minus y is positive 12. All of these are the same. Both of the greens, both of the reds, all the same exact equation. Same table, same graph, same answers, same thing. 3 different forms, all the same. If you have 2 points, you need to solve for the slope. Now, I kind of like to write my points vertically. And then slope, remember that y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So my little thing here is actually making this my x1 and this my x2, y2. It doesn't matter which point you label 1 or 2. I'm going to translate these 2 numbers over here. So negative 4 minus 2 and these 2 over here. 1 minus 3 in the same order. So since I use negative 4 first, I have to use 1 first. Negative 4 first and 1 first. Those are both my second points right here. All right, so this simplifies to give me a slope of negative 6 over negative 2. So my slope is 3. So my point slope form, I can use either point. So I'm going to write the first one with the first set of points. Y minus negative 4, that's plus 4, equals m times x minus 1. I'm going to write my second point slope form with this point. Whoa, went too far. Y minus 2 equals 3, which is my m, times x minus 3. Now, just to show you, I'm going to put both of these in y-intercept form. We'll be in black here. This is point slope form. So to get to y-intercept form, I would distribute my 3. So y plus 4 equals 3x minus 3. And then I would subtract 4. So y equals 3x minus 7. Let's do the same exact thing with my green point slope form. So y minus 2 equals 3x minus 9. And as I add 2, y equals 3x minus 7. Check that out. So my blue is the same exact thing as my green, which is the same exact thing as my black y-intercept form. All 3 of those equations are the same. And if you just can't stop and you want to put it in standard form, you would move the 3x back through subtracting, and then you would want to make that 3x positive. So there's the last form. So fun. Let's do it again. So we're going to find our slope. So negative 7 minus 5 over 4 minus 0. I'm going to slash and dash this. That's a negative 12 over 4. So this time my slope is negative 3. So I'll use that point and write my point slope form in red. Y minus negative 7 equals my slope, which is negative 3, times x minus 4. This time I'm going to do it like you're doing it on your homework and be done, but you're welcome to convert it to all of the forms. It's so fun. Y minus 5 equals negative 3 times x minus 0. That's my other point-slope form. Again, if you put those both in y-intercept form or standard form, you'll get the exact same answer. It's all the same. Everything's the same. So here's the three forms. We're going to take this last equation. This is in standard form. And we're going to convert that to slope-intercept form and then point-slope form. So slope-intercept form is solving for y. So we're going to subtract 3x. Negative 4y equals negative 3x plus 8. And then we're going to divide by negative 4. So y equals negative, over a negative is a positive, so 3/4 x plus negative 2. So that is slope-intercept form. All right, to make that point-slope form, I'm not really sure why you'd want to go to point-slope form from here. I don't think you'll ever really want to do that, but we'll do it. So if you make a table, 0, if you plug 0 in, you get negative 2. That's really the only point you need, because we know that our slope is 3/4. So this is our x, and this is our y. So y minus negative 2 equals m times x minus x. Last problem. We're going to write all three forms for these 2 points. So I'm going to find the slope first. And if you have to write all three, probably the easiest one to do first is point slope. Five minus negative 1 over 2 minus 4. That's 6 over negative 2. So our slope is negative 3. That makes sense because as x is going up, y is going down. So pick your favorite point. It truly doesn't matter which one you pick. I'm going to throw in the first one because there's no negatives to screw up. So y minus 5, that's my y, equals m, which is negative 3, times x minus, this is my x. If you chose the other point, you're going to get the exact same answers for standard form as well as slope-intercept form. So this is point-slope form. That one's done. Now we're going to go to slope-intercept form. This is the easiest way to convert to the 3. So we're going to distribute the negative 3. And then we're going to bring the 5 over. And then we're going to go to standard form, which means we're just going to bring the x over to the left so that there's x, and then y, and then the number. This time that's our answer because the coefficient of x is positive, because to get that negative 3x over, we had to add it to both sides. So we've got our standard form in black, our slope-intercept form in green, and our point-slope form in blue. And again, you could also have written the other point-slope form, y minus negative 1 equals negative 3 times x minus 4. You'll get the same exact answer. So it really doesn't matter which one. Math is a beautiful thing. Have a great night.